With the rise of Nurgle once again forcing my area into another extended lockdown and my plans for the rest of the month ruined, I decided to work on a project I had in mind since early June. For my son's birthday, I threw together a small kill team for him. Nothing fancy, just a few marines that he could paint in the colours of his chosen chapter, the wolf spears, aka the coolest thing ever to a 9-year-old. And it got me thinking about building my own kill team. So today, I'm going to be using the materials I have around the house to make the very first of my kill team, Varion Bataraah, a Reiver Sergeant of the Lamenters Chapter. To begin with, I needed a body, and as you can see here, I have started not with a Reiver body, but with one of the Assault Intercessors, primarily because they are all I have on hand, but also I'm wanting to convey the feeling that this chapter, or this squad, is very undersupplied, like me, and using whatever armour they have available at the time. To make this look a little less like the Assault Intercessor, I began by removing the holster on his belt. The Reivers do have an option for a bolt pistol, but I will not be taking it for this model, and even so, their pistols are a lot smaller and a large holster would look a little out of place. So, taking my knife, I carefully cut the holster away from the belt area. This does not need to be the tidiest in the world, however, as it is going to be hidden later on, and once that is removed, I can now glue the body and the legs together with some plastic glue. Once the body was together, I needed to make a few more adjustments. The pegs for the arms would not be needed, as the intended arms are coming from elsewhere. This was as simple as taking my clippers to the base of the peg, and then cleaning the area flush with my knife, for a better surface to glue later on. The next step to make his armour different would be to remove the wings from the aquila on his chest. Taking my knife, I very carefully made several trims to remove each wing in turn, keeping the skull in the middle intact, before giving the area a good clean up with my knife. As this part of the model is going to be visible, I took extra care on this part, and came in with my file near the end to really get the area as smooth and intentional as possible. With that done, this chest plate, whilst not a perfect replica of the Phobos armour, is now noticeably different from the original model. To take that a step further, I have the chest mounted grenades from the Reiver kit. These can be glued straight on, in an appropriate place, and really help to convey the difference between this and a regular Assault Intercessor. Next up, I'm going to cover where the holster was on his belt. Taking a holstered grapnel launcher from the Reiver's kit, this could just be glued straight in place on the belt, and no one will ever know that the old holster was even there. My next step here was to give the model some damage to his armour. Anyone familiar with the Lamenters would know that they are cursed with really, really bad luck, and find themselves in situations that not even the mighty Space Marines really want to be in. To represent this, I'm going to take my knife, clippers and drill to the model in order to give it some battle damage beyond a few scrapes and bumps. To begin this process, I made some cuts in the collar area with my clippers to take some V-shapes out of it, before bringing in the knife to extend those V's into some deeper scratches that led down the chest plate. Next, the drill was employed on a few armour panels to carefully drill indents into them, as if they had been hit by bullets or melted a little by some alien acid. A few more cuts, holes and scrapes were applied to various parts of the model, before taking an old paintbrush and some plastic glue, and then just dipping it in and applying this to some of the areas that had just been roughed up and indented and drilled in. Plastic glue works by melting plastics together, but in this case, I'm using it to help soften up some of the edges. This can be particularly good for conveying acid damage, or making the edges of some of the gouges look as though they'd been there for quite a while and were worn a little smoother over time. You don't have to go mad here, just enough to soften the plastic a little. Whilst that sits aside and hardens up again, I moved on to his power pack. To give the idea of a field repair with whatever was on hand, I decided to remove one of the exhausts from the top of the pack and replace it with one from an older style Firstborn kit. This wouldn't look too out of place, and the subtle difference in exhaust could be accentuated by maybe painting a slightly different shade. To do this, I took my saw and carefully removed the exhaust from the pack I'm using, before doing similar with the donor pack. This could then be cleaned up with a knife and glued into place on the pack. I also roughed up the area around this exhaust by both drilling and cutting into its surrounds, hopefully giving a slight clue as to what might have happened to the original. With the pack nicely mauled up and repair jobbed up, I set it aside to add the arms. Varion is armed with his bolt carbine and a combat knife, and the Space Wolf upgrade sprue had an arm unsheathing a knife that I felt would suit the pose I was going for, charging into combat at the head of his ragtag squad. The pose was not 100% perfect, as this part is designed for a more static body and the assault intercessors have very nice action poses, but it fits at the shoulder and could latch onto the belt around the buckle area, so I was happy with this, and any smaller gaps around the shoulder area will be covered up with his shoulder pad. And speaking of which, I have one here from one of the Firstborn Marine kits. Most of the new Primaris kits have slightly different shoulders, and I felt this would be another subtle piece of mismatched armour that would help the look. With Varion's left arm stuck together and in place, I moved on to the right. In this case, from the Reiver kit, I took an arm holding the bolt carbine one-handed and glued it into place before attaching his power pack. The head that I'm planning to use for Varion is one of the helmetless heads from the Reiver's kit again. This one in particular has some scarring along one side that would marry nicely, I felt, with the scratches on his chest plate. As it was from a Primaris kit, this could be glued straight into place without any need for cutting, and after adding a few more scratches to the shoulder, he was ready for a base and some paint. And here, finally, we have Varion Bataraah. Painted up in his yellow, his armour beat up, mismatched, and grubby from the many battles he has faced since becoming the de facto leader of his new squad, after the strike force they were part of became decimated due to a series of unfortunate events. Made up from the remnants of many different squads with varying specialisations, Varion is the glue that keeps the kill team together. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would just like to say a big thank you for watching. I will likely have a few more of the videos coming as I build my kill team to starting strength, whilst making do with the hobby supplies I have available during this trying time. If you enjoyed the video, please consider a like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time. Have a good one all.